What am I going to tell Agent Terry's mother about how he died at the hand of a gun that was videotaped as it was sold to a straw purchaser, fully expecting it to end up in the hands of drug cartels?
The notion that somehow or other this Justice Department is responsible for those deaths that you mentioned, that assertion is offensive.
Serious friction between Representative Darrell Issa and Attorney General Eric Holder about the investigation into Project Gunrunner. The ill-conceived program allegedly allowed guns purchased illegally in the United States to be smuggled into Mexico on behalf of the drug cartels with the knowledge and consent of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. The ATF hoped to trace the guns and ultimately make arrests of the big fish in the trafficking network, but that apparently never happened. But the killing of a U.S. border agent with one of those guns did happen, and that has raised the urgency of finding out what happened. Here to help us is whistleblowing ATF agent Jay Dobbins, who suffered a huge price for his undercover work inside the Hells Angels gang, about which more in a moment. But first, Mr. Dobbins, is Issa right? Is the ATF a reckless organization?
Congressman Issa is spot on with his allegations. Yes, reckless and corrupt.
Wow. Now, we have a note that Chuck Grassley, a handwritten note that Chuck Grassley gave to Eric Holder, our Attorney General, I guess it was yesterday, in which he says you should check to see if you are getting accurate information from your staff. You might be ill-served. What do you think the basis of that note is?
Attorney General Holder and the Director of ATF, Ken Melson, they're true believers in their inner circle of advisors. They don't ask questions. They don't go beyond the rhetoric and the propaganda that they're fed. And they're being misled, and they are representing America with false information.
So there's a cover-up going on.
Absolutely, there's a cover-up and deception and lies and retaliation and retribution against the people who are trying to tell the truth.
Well, why haven't you been retaliating? You're still an ATF agent. I'm surprised they haven't tried to get rid of you.
Oh, they've tried, trust me, and I have been retaliated against on numerous occasions in multiple methods. And the problem at ATF and with DOJ is that no one cares. That is acceptable practice at ATF and within DOJ to attack the people that want to tell the truth.
Give us some examples of how you've been attacked.
The witnesses in my case have been retaliated against, and numerous dozens of death and violence threats against me, to include having my house burned to the ground and everything in it destroyed, have not been investigated, intentionally ignored by the Attorney General.
We should mention that when you went undercover for the Hells Angels, eventually you came out of cover. The Hells Angels figured out who you were, where you lived, where you and your family lived, more importantly, and apparently they wrote you a note, we know who you are, we know where you live, and they eventually went and burned your house down while your wife and kids were in there, right?
Well, beyond that, there was direct threats against my wife to videotape the gang rape of my wife and make me watch it. There was threats against my kids to torture my children to get back to me. And
now, did the ATF, you must have, when you got the threats, when you got the initial threats, some of which were carried through on, did you contact the ATF? Did you say, look, guys, I'm hanging out there. You got to protect me?
Well, absolutely. I went to them immediately with those threats, and they told me to shut up and go away. And the same people that failed to investigate the threats are the ones who are now responsible for Gunrunner.
Wow. Well, why would they hold back? Was it because you were being forthright as a whistleblower about the problems in the agency? Is that why they weren't giving you the support you needed?
You know, absolutely. The same people that asked me to go toe-to-toe with violent crime in America, to serve the mission of the agency, to deny guns to violent criminals in society, when that violence came back home on me, on one of their own, they didn't want anything to do with it.
This, you know, frankly, this sounds like more than just a reckless group of individuals. This sounds like a rogue agency. Is that too strong a statement?
You know, if this story was fictional, no one would believe it, because that's how crazy it is. Unfortunately for me, it's the dead-on truth of what they've done and haven't done with regards to the threats against me.
Now, there have been other cases in history where people like you, the whistleblowers like Serpico and other folks, go out and tell the truth and get beat upon. How do you think this ends? I mean, you're in it for the long haul, I guess, if you're still with the ATF. You're not quitting, are you?
No, and as long as the people that are in charge at ATF are left in charge, it's not going to end. What happened to me is not a one-time event. It's happened historically and institutionally through ATF. I'm just the first person to stand up and call them out and try to do something about it.
Well, there is a border agent who is dead as a result of this operation. Everybody has to admit that. Would that border agent have been alive if there was more care taken in this operation to begin with?
I think that the people that murdered Agent Terry probably would have gotten those guns to do that with regardless. But the fact that ATF had their hands on those guns at one point and knowingly allowed them to get loose to criminals is, I'm sorry that the Attorney General is offended by that, but I'm offended by the fact that my agency, who has the jurisdiction to deny guns to criminals, assisted in providing those guns to criminals.
Boy, Jay, it's an extraordinary story, and we're going to stay on it. Please come back and let us know how it develops, would you?
Thank you, absolutely.
Jay Dobbins, agent with the ATF. Thank you very much. And coming up on deck, what about